Welcome to long-form content of Tech Bytes and News. This is a compilation on latest news and articles featured on Hacker News. You can find the original links of articles in the description. Please like and subscribe to support future content. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into a wild story about malicious NPM packages, a SNCC security researcher, and a whole lot of stolen secrets. Get ready!
Oh boy, here we go. Malicious packages? Sounds like a thrilling episode. So what's the gist?
The gist, my friend, is that someone, and I'm using that term loosely, from SNCC, a security company apparently, deployed some seriously nasty NPM packages. These weren't your average, run-of-the-mill packages, oh no. These were designed to target Cursor.com, a big name in AI coding.
Wait, a security company employee deploying malicious packages? That's ironic, to say the least. What did these packages actually do?
Exactly. The irony is thicker than a triple chocolate fudge cake. They were designed to collect system data. Think AWS keys, NPM tokens, GitHub credentials, the whole shebang, and send it all to an attacker-controlled server. We're talking serious data exfiltration.
Whoa, that's a major breach waiting to happen. So how did they get discovered?
Well, the author cleverly named them things like Cursor Retrieval and Cursor Shadow Workspace, hoping Cursor employees would accidentally install them thinking they were legitimate internal tools. Luckily, they were flagged by OpenSSF's Package Analysis Scanner and OSV-issued malware advisories. It's a bit like a fishing net catching the very fish that set it.
Clever, but also incredibly risky. So the evidence points to a SNCC employee? How sure are we?
Pretty sure. The NPM package metadata shows a sncc.io email address, which can't be easily faked. The author field also mentions a SNCC employee. Although that could be faked, but with the email address verification, it's highly suspicious. It's like they left a calling card with their company logo on it.
Incredible. So what can developers do to protect themselves from this kind of attack?
Well, the short answer is, don't install packages blindly. These malicious packages had only two files, package.json and index.js. That's a huge red flag. Also, keep an eye on security advisories from sources like OSV. And maybe don't trust everyone, even if they work for a security company. Just saying.
Solid advice. It's a bit like checking the ingredients before you eat a cake. You wouldn't want a surprise ingredient, right? This whole situation highlights the importance of robust security practices across the entire software supply chain. It's not just about the code itself. It's about where it comes from and who has access to it.
Absolutely. This whole incident is a stark reminder that security is a continuous process, not a one-time fix. We need to be vigilant, proactive, and always on the lookout for those sneaky little malicious packages lurking in the depths of the internet. Stay safe out there, folks.
Indeed. Thanks for breaking down this fascinating and slightly terrifying story.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Until next time, stay secure and keep those coding skills sharp. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Get ready, folks, because OpenZFS 2.3.0 is here. It's packed with features, so buckle up.
Whoa, hold on a sec. OpenZFS? For the uninitiated, like myself, what's the big deal?
OpenZFS, my friend, is the open-source implementation of the ZFS file system. Think of it as the ultimate storage solution, robust, scalable, and incredibly efficient. And 2.3.0 is a huge leap forward.
Huge, you say? Lay it on me. What are the killer features?
Well, first off, RAIDZ expansion. Imagine adding disks to your RAIDZ pool without taking it offline. No downtime, just more storage.
That's amazing. I've always hated downtime.
Right? And then there's the fast deduplication. We're talking a major performance boost over the original. Think faster writes, less storage used. It's a win-win.
Deduplication is always a good thing, especially with all the data we generate these days. What else?
Oh, there's more. Direct I/O for NVMe devices, bypassing the ARC for even faster read/write speeds. Think of it like a superhighway for your data, bypassing traffic jams. Plus, JSON output for common commands, making scripting a breeze.
JSON output? Yes! That's a huge improvement for automation. And what about those long file names?
You got it. Now you can have file and directory names up to 1023 characters. Say goodbye to those frustratingly short name limits. Plus, a whole bunch of bug fixes and performance improvements across the board.
Sounds like a dream come true for sysadmins everywhere. But what about compatibility? What systems does it support?
Excellent question. It supports Linux kernels from 4.18 to 6.12, and FreeBSD releases 13.3, 14.0 through 14.2. Pretty broad support, I'd say.
Impressive! And I see there are a bunch of new module options. Are those all critical to understand?
Not all are critical for everyday use, but they offer granular control for advanced users. Things like adjusting deduplication logging, controlling ARC shrinking, and optimizing I/O. The documentation is quite thorough, so check that out for details there. There are also some removed and modified options, so be sure to check the changelog to avoid any surprises.
I see. So in short, OpenZFS 2.3.0 is a major upgrade with significant performance improvements and new features that address many long-standing issues. It's a must-have update for anyone using ZFS. Right?
Absolutely. A massive thank you to the 134 contributors who made this release possible. You guys are rock stars. Go check it out. The links to the documentation and changelog are in the show notes.
And don't forget to check out those new module options if you're feeling adventurous.
Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We'll catch you next time with more exciting tech updates. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the incredible story of Shavash Karapetyan, a name you might not know, but a story you won't forget. Get ready, folks. It's a wild ride.
A wild ride? Sounds intriguing. So, what makes this Shavash Karapetyan so special? Was he like a superhero or something?
Well, not in the cape and tights sense, but close. He was a champion fin swimmer, a ridiculously strong athlete, and, most importantly, a real-life hero.
Fin swimmer? What's that? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. It's swimming with fins, like a human torpedo. He was unbelievably good, setting multiple world records. But the story gets even more amazing.
I see. So what happened?
One evening in 1976, while training, he witnessed a trolleybus plunge into Lake Yerevan. Think about it. A fully loaded bus, sinking fast.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a disaster. Without hesitation, he ditched his training gear, dove in, and started rescuing people. This guy, he's not just a swimmer, he's a human wrecking ball.
Wow, so he just pulled people out one by one? How many?
He pulled out dozens. The exact number is debated, but it was a heroic effort. He even broke a window on the bus to get to more people. His brother helped too, acting as a support on the surface.
That's incredible. But, wasn't the water polluted? I mean, Lake Yerevan wasn't exactly known for its pristine waters, right?
Exactly. The water was filthy. He ended up with pneumonia and nearly died himself. But even after that, he was back in the pool, competing again. Talk about resilience.
Unbelievable. I mean, the sheer physical and mental strength. But why wasn't this story more widely known at the time?
The Soviet government covered it up. They didn't want to publicize a major accident involving a Soviet trolleybus. Can you believe that? They only released a tiny little blurb about it in the newspaper.
That's insane. So how did the world eventually find out about his heroism?
Years later, a journalist dug up the story. It finally got the recognition it deserved. Even then, he didn't seek fame. He just did what he felt was right.
It's a truly inspiring story. A testament to human courage and selflessness. And, he even carried the Olympic torch in Sochi, even though the flame went out.
He's a legend. He even opened a shoe repair shop in Moscow after moving there. Talk about a diverse skill set.
Amazing. This has been such a fascinating story. Thanks for sharing this, incredible tale with us.
My pleasure. That's Shavash Karapetyan for you, a true champion, both in and out of the water. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day, everyone, and remember to always strive for greatness, even if it means diving into a polluted lake to save lives. Bye!
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into the exhilarating world of LinuxServer.io's WebTop, a Docker image that lets you run full desktop environments in your browser. It's like magic, but with more Linux.
Whoa, a desktop in my browser? Sounds intense. Is it actually usable? I mean, are we talking full functionality or just a glorified text editor? I'm really excited to hear about this.
Oh, it's fully usable. We're talking XFCE, KDE, Mate, i3, OpenBox, even IceWM, a veritable smorgasbord of desktop environments. You can run your favorite apps, all from within a web browser. Think of it as a portable, browser-based virtual machine.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But how does it handle different architectures? I've got an ARM64 device. Will it work? I'm curious.
Absolutely. They use Docker manifests for multi-platform support. Just pull back, lscr.io/linuxserver/webtop:"latest," and it'll grab the right image for your system. They support x86-64 and ARM64. Sadly, ARMHF is currently unsupported. Bummer, right?
Smart use of Docker manifests. So what about security? I'm always a bit wary of running full desktop environments in containers, especially if I'm exposing them to the internet. Security is paramount.
Right. They strongly advise against exposing this directly to the internet. No authentication by default. They recommend using environment variables for basic HTTP auth, but even then, it's best to put it behind a reverse proxy like SWAG for proper security. And remember, it's got a terminal with passwordless sudo. So, be careful. Don't do anything stupid.
Good point. Passwordless sudo is a big security risk. So, what about customization? Can I install my own apps? Customization is key.
You bet. You can use "prut apps" to install and manage applications persistently. It keeps your apps separate from the base container, so upgrades won't wipe them out. Alternatively, you can install packages directly during startup using "universal package install", but that's less ideal. Prut is the way to go.
I see. So, "prut apps" is the recommended approach for application management. What about GPU acceleration? I'd love to run some graphically intensive apps. GPU acceleration is a must.
They support DRI3 GPU acceleration using open-source drivers for Intel and AMD. NVIDIA support is limited to the Nouveau driver and requires some extra configuration. You'll need to mount /dev/dri, and might need to specify the "DRINODE" environment variable. And remember, Alpine images don't support NVIDIA at all. Important distinction.
Interesting. So it's not a perfect solution for NVIDIA users, but it's still pretty impressive for open source drivers. How about internationalization? Does it support multiple languages? Multilingual support is important.
Yes. You can set the "LC_all" environment variable to specify the language. However, they only guarantee support for Latin characters. CJK fonts might require additional installation. And there's an IME input mode in the settings for non-English keyboards. Pretty comprehensive.
Excellent. This WebTop sounds like a powerful tool for accessing a full desktop environment remotely. The security considerations are important, but the flexibility and multi-architecture support are impressive. Thanks for the detailed overview. This is amazing.
My pleasure. Remember to check out the LinuxServer.io documentation for the complete details and always prioritize security. And that's all the time we have for today's episode of Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into the fascinating world of Hardbreak, a hardware hacking wiki. Get ready to geek out.
Ooh, hardware hacking. Sounds intense. So what's the big deal about this Hardbreak wiki? Is it like a secret society for tech ninjas or something?
Haha, not quite a secret society, but close. It's a collaboratively built, Open source wiki dedicated to organizing information on hardware hacking and IoT security. Think of it as a central hub for all things hardware related, from basic tools to advanced techniques. It's all about making this knowledge more accessible.
I see. So instead of sifting through a million different blogs and forums, you've got one comprehensive resource? That's brilliant! What kind of stuff is actually covered?
Exactly. They cover a huge range of topics. We're talking about everything from the absolute basics, like what tools you need to get started. We're talking multimeters, oscilloscopes, logic analyzers, oh my, to advanced techniques like voltage glitching and electromagnetic fault injection. It's seriously impressive.
Voltage glitching? Sounds dangerous, is it?
Yeah, it can be. It involves manipulating the voltage supply to a device to trigger errors and potentially gain access. It's definitely not something to try at home without proper knowledge and safety precautions, you know? But the wiki explains it all in detail. They also cover firmware extraction, different communication protocols like UART, I2C, SPI, JTAG, and even network and radio hacking. It's a goldmine.
Wow, that's a broad scope. So it's not just for seasoned pros. Is there anything for beginners?
Absolutely. There's a whole section dedicated to getting started, including a suggested methodology and even a case study that led to a CVE update. Pretty cool, huh? They even provide guidance on choosing your first target device and essential tools. It's a really well-structured resource for all skill levels.
That's amazing. So how can people contribute to this wiki? Is it just for reading, or can folks get involved?
Oh, it's totally collaborative. They encourage contributions through pull requests on their GitHub repository. If you spot an error, you can report it or even make edits directly. It's all about community building and knowledge sharing. It's a beautiful thing.
I love that. It sounds like a really valuable resource for anyone interested in hardware hacking or IoT security. Is there anything else we should mention?
Oh yeah, they have a Discord server. A Discord server. It's a great place to connect with other hardware hackers, discuss projects, and get feedback. They even have a guide on how to contribute to the wiki itself, which is super helpful for newcomers. And remember, it's all for educational purposes. Don't go hacking anything you shouldn't.
Absolutely. Responsible disclosure is key. Thanks for sharing this. It sounds like a fantastic resource. I'm definitely checking it out.
You bet. And that's all the time we have for today's episode of Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into Voyage AI's brand new code retrieval model, Voyage CODE3. It's a game changer, folks.
A game changer? Ooh, I'm intrigued. Spill the beans. What makes it so special?
Well, first off, the performance is astounding. It trounces OpenAI's V3 Large and CodeSage Large by an average of 13.8% and 16.81%, respectively, across 32 datasets. That's a massive leap forward.
Wow, that's a huge improvement. But what's the secret sauce? Is it some kind of magical algorithm?
It's not magic, but it's pretty close. They're using Matryoshka learning and quantization. Think of Matryoshka dolls. Nested embeddings of different sizes within the main vector. You can use a smaller, faster embedding if you need to, without sacrificing too much accuracy.
So, like a multi-resolution embedding? Clever. And the quantization? What's that all about?
Exactly. Quantization reduces the size of the embeddings by using fewer bits per dimension. They support float, int8, uint8, binary, and ubinary formats. This drastically cuts down storage and search costs, which is huge for large codebases.
So less storage, faster search, and still pretty accurate. It sounds almost too good to be true. What about the trade-off between storage and accuracy? Surely there's a catch?
There's always a trade-off, but Voyage AI has minimized it. They've got a graph showing that even with binary 1024-dimensional embeddings, the quality loss is surprisingly small. It's a really impressive balance.
I see. And they've also improved the training data, right? More data, better model?
Absolutely. They used a massive, diverse corpus of text, code, and math, with a carefully tuned code-to-text ratio. And they focused on contrastive learning, using docstring code and code-code pairs from GitHub across hundreds of programming languages, plus real-world query code pairs for extra robustness.
That's a serious commitment to data quality. And the evaluation, how did they ensure it was rigorous?
They used 32 datasets across 5 categories, addressing weaknesses in existing benchmarks. They even accounted for issues like noisy labels and data contamination in previous datasets. They really went the extra mile to make sure the results are reliable.
Impressive. So Voyage-Code-3 is faster, cheaper, and more accurate. What's the catch? Is it expensive?
The first 200 million tokens are free. After that, it's a paid service. But considering the performance gains, it might be worth the investment for many developers. Plus, the flexibility of different embedding sizes makes it adaptable to various needs and budgets.
This is exciting stuff. It sounds like a significant advancement in code retrieval. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
My pleasure. And remember, listeners, you can find all the details, including the evaluation spreadsheet and the documentation, on the Voyage AI blog. Check it out and let us know what you think. That's all for this episode of Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day and happy coding.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving deep into a surprisingly insightful blog post. 20 lines of code that will beat A/B testing every time. It's about ditching traditional A/B testing and embracing a more efficient approach using the multi-armed bandit problem. Exciting!
A/B testing? Seriously? I thought that was, like, ancient history. What's the beef?
The beef, my friend, is that A/B testing wastes resources. You split your users, show half the old stuff, half the new, and you lose out on potential gains while you wait for results. It's like a drug trial, but with website buttons instead of life-saving medication. Ouch!
So what's the alternative?
The multi-armed bandit algorithm. Think of it as a smarter slot machine. It continuously learns which option performs best and adjusts accordingly. Instead of a 50-50 split, it favors the apparent winner, but still explores other options to ensure it doesn't miss out on something even better. It's all about balancing exploration and exploitation.
Sounds like magic. But how does it work in practice? Is it really just 20 lines of code?
Pretty much. The core is an epsilon greedy approach. 10% of the time, it chooses randomly, exploration. 90% of the time, it picks the option with the highest expected reward, exploitation. It tracks successes and failures for each option, constantly refining its estimates. Simple, yet powerful.
So what about the math? How does it calculate these expected rewards?
It's straightforward. For each option, it divides the total reward, e.g., number of clicks, by the number of times that option was shown. The higher the ratio, the higher the expected reward. It's a simple average, but it's incredibly effective in guiding the algorithm toward the best option.
I see. But what if the best option changes over time? Like, if a design trend shifts?
That's a valid point. The blog post mentions that you could incorporate a forgetting factor to weigh recent results more heavily. This allows the algorithm to adapt to changing preferences. It's not perfect, but it's significantly better than the static nature of A/B testing.
Interesting. So this 20-line solution is always better than A/B testing?
Well, not always. The blog post makes a strong case, but it's not a silver bullet. It's better in many scenarios, especially when you have many options or limited time to analyze results. The epsilon greedy strategy is just one approach. There are more sophisticated methods like Thompson sampling and upper confidence bound that offer even better performance. But for a simple, effective solution, this is a great starting point.
So it's a powerful tool, but not a replacement for all A/B testing scenarios. It's more of a powerful enhancement.
Exactly. It's about maximizing your results while minimizing wasted time and resources. Think of it as a turbocharger for your optimization efforts. And it's all thanks to the surprisingly elegant, multi-armed bandit algorithm. Amazing!
Definitely worth exploring. Thanks for the breakdown.
You're welcome. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion insightful and perhaps even a little bit inspiring. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of handcrafted, wearable tech, specifically a fluid simulation pendant. It's mind-blowing.
A fluid simulation pendant? Seriously? That sounds incredibly complex. What's the gist?
The gist, my friend, is a tiny, gold-plated masterpiece containing a real-time FLIP fluid simulation. Think of it as a miniature, wearable snow globe, but way cooler. It runs on an STM32L432KC microcontroller, overclocked to 100 MHz. That's speed!
An overclocked microcontroller in a pendant? That's intense. What kind of power consumption are we talking about here?
Incredibly low. We're talking about a TPS-7A02 regulator and an MCP-73832 charge controller, both ridiculously efficient. The battery lasts for ages. The creator even used a TPS-3839 supervisor to cut power at 3.08 volts to protect the battery. Ingenious.
Impressive. But how do they even get a fluid simulation onto such a small device? The memory alone must be a challenge.
Ah, that's where the cleverness really shines. The display uses a diagonal Charlie-plexing technique, half the vias of a conventional matrix, and DMA, in circular mode, runs the display with zero overhead. It's all about optimization.
Diagonal Charlie-plexing? Explain that like I'm 5.
Okay, imagine a grid of LEDs. Normally, you'd need lots of wires to control each row and column. This method cleverly uses fewer wires by connecting them diagonally. It's like a super efficient wiring puzzle. Very clever.
So the fluid simulation itself, is it a direct port of existing code or something completely new?
It's a re-implementation based on Matthias Muller's 10-minute physics tutorials. The creator painstakingly rebuilt the simulation, understanding the underlying principles rather than just copying code. Dedication!
That's admirable. But even with optimization, running a FLIP simulation on such limited hardware must have presented some unique challenges, right?
Absolutely. Initially, particle collisions were a huge bottleneck. A naive approach led to a messy, overlapping fluid. Think frog spawn. But implementing a hash grid algorithm dramatically improved performance, even at a tiny 8x8 resolution. A massive leap forward.
So they went from digital frog spawn to a working fluid simulation. That's quite a journey. What about the physical construction? That must have been a nightmare.
Oh, the construction is a whole other story. It involved laser-cut card prototypes, hand soldering with enamel wire, a true testament to patience. Then came the PCB design, the metalworking, gold plating. It's an epic tale of engineering.
I can only imagine. The author mentioned some interesting challenges with the metalworking, particularly the watch glass. What were the biggest hurdles there?
Getting the tolerances right for the watch glass was a major challenge. They had to experiment with different gasket thicknesses and diameters to ensure a watertight seal. And let's not forget the gold plating, which turned out to be surprisingly finicky with the solder used for the jump rings. A real learning curve.
So in the end, how many pendants did they make? And are they for sale?
They made 10 pendants. And yes, a few are available for sale on their website. But be warned, these aren't your average pieces of jewelry. The price reflects the incredible amount of work and ingenuity involved. A true collector's item.
This is absolutely incredible, a testament to human ingenuity and the power of embedded systems. Thank you for sharing this amazing story.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of wearable fluid simulations. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into the fascinating world of Campsite, an open-source marvel, a truly impressive feat of engineering. It's quite the undertaking to set up locally, though.
Yeah, I saw that. It looks like a monster of a project. So walk me through the highlights. What's the core functionality?
Essentially, it's a fully functional, open-source version of the Campsite app, but it's not actively maintained. Think of it as a gift to the open-source community, a peek behind the curtain, if you will. But be warned, setting it up is adventurous.
Adventurous is one word for it. I see they mention needing S3, pusher, IMGIX, and 100 milliseconds. That's a lot of dependencies.
Oh, absolutely. It's like building a Frankenstein's monster of services. You need S3 for media, pusher for real-time updates, IMGIX for the CDN, and 100 milliseconds for video conferencing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Iceberg? More like a whole glacier. They also list OpenAI, Figma, Linear, and a whole host of other integrations. It's a comprehensive ecosystem.
Precisely. It's like a technological tapestry woven from a multitude of services. Each one adds a layer of complexity, but also a layer of functionalities. It's quite impressive, really. Though it does require a significant amount of setup.
I see that. Setting up the AWS IAM users and policies alone seems like a major task. And then configuring all those credentials. Yikes.
Tell me about it. You're dealing with multiple API keys, source IDs, webhook URLs. It's a credential chaos. But hey, if you're up for the challenge, you get a fully functional, albeit complex, campsite instance.
And what about running it? It looks like they use Overmind to manage all the services. Is that necessary?
It seems so, yes. Overmind appears to be their process manager of choice. It helps manage all those different services, keeping them running smoothly. It's a crucial part of the local development setup. Without it, you'd be in for a world of hurt.
Definitely sounds like a project for someone with a lot of free time and a strong understanding of various cloud services and APIs. But I have to admit, the sheer scope is quite impressive.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the power of open source and the willingness to share such a complex project. Although I do wonder about the long-term maintainability of a project with so many dependencies. That's a concern, isn't it?
It is. But even if it's not actively maintained, the codebase itself provides invaluable insight into how a sophisticated application like Campsite is built. It's a great learning resource. A goldmine for developers.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. Even if you can't run it locally, the sheer scale and complexity of the project are a masterclass in software engineering. So thank you for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the Campsite monorepo. Have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating case study. Image detection with 350 incredibly similar images. Think finding a specific car illustration on a wall amongst hundreds of almost identical ones. It's a real-world challenge that's surprisingly solved with a clever mix of techniques.
Sounds intense. So what was the initial approach, and why did it fail?
Initially, they planned a web AR solution, but the images were just too similar. Even a specialized AR partner said, nope, can't do it. Too many markers, too much data, and the images were practically twins.
Oh, wow. So they needed a backup plan. What did they try next?
They tried a mobile net model, a lightweight image classification model perfect for mobile devices. They used transfer learning and data augmentation, creating hundreds of variations of each image. Clever, right?
Very clever. But did it work?
Initially, the results were promising. But consistent results were a problem. Multiple snapshots of the same car often yielded different matches. It wasn't reliable enough.
So Plan B failed too. What was Plan C?
They switched gears and used a KNN search with image embeddings from AWS Titan. This improved things, but not perfectly. Some cars were consistently mismatched with very similar ones.
Interesting. So they were close, but not quite there. What was the final solution?
They used GPT-4 to act as a final arbiter. They fed it the top 3 candidates from the KNN search, along with the reference image, and GPT-4 picked the correct one. It was like adding a human-level final check.
That's brilliant. So they used a combination of traditional computer vision techniques and a large language model to solve a seemingly impossible problem.
Exactly. It shows how LLMs are changing the game. They're becoming one-stop shops for all sorts of ML tasks, from image matching to text categorization. It's a real game changer.
It's amazing how they leveraged the strengths of different models. The cost is also surprisingly low, right?
Yeah, around 0.0001 United States dollars per image match with GPT-4. Pretty affordable for such a complex task. This whole story highlights the power of combining different AI techniques and the versatility of LLMs.
Absolutely. It's a testament to creative problem solving and the evolving capabilities of AI. A truly inspiring story.
And that's the story of how they used GPT-4 to solve a seemingly impossible image detection problem. Thanks for listening to Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into a fascinating article from The Economist. Quote, training AI models might not need enormous data centers. Get ready for some serious tech talk, folks. It's gonna be wild.
Woohoo! I'm already buzzing. So, are we talking about a shift away from these massive data centers? Like the kind that use enough power to light up small countries?
Precisely. Think of it. The current AI arms race is all about who can hoard the most GPUs. Elon Musk boasting about 100,000. Zuckerberg countering with 350,000. It's like a GPU-fueled playground brawl for tech giants. But the article suggests this might be changing.
Whoa, that's a lot of GPUs. But what's the alternative? Are we talking about some revolutionary new hardware? Something smaller? More efficient? Maybe powered by hamsters on tiny treadmills?
Haha, hamsters on treadmills. Now that's a startup idea. But seriously, the article hints at a more fundamental shift. It suggests that future models might not need dedicated hardware at all. They might be trained using distributed computing, leveraging the power of many smaller, less energy-intensive devices.
Wait, what? You mean like training an AI on a network of personal computers? That sounds incredibly inefficient.
That's the beauty of it. It's not about efficiency in the traditional sense. It's about accessibility and scalability. Imagine tapping into the collective computing power of millions of devices, phones, laptops, even smart refrigerators. The sheer scale could dwarf even the largest data centers.
I see. So it's a bit like a massive, decentralized supercomputer. But wouldn't coordinating all that be a nightmare? And what about data security? That's a huge concern.
Absolutely. The article doesn't delve into the specifics of how this would be managed, but it does raise those very valid points. Security and coordination are monumental challenges. It's a long-term vision, not something happening tomorrow.
Right. But it's a pretty radical idea. It could potentially democratize AI development, making it less reliant on a few megacorporations with massive resources. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it?
Exactly. It could level the playing field. It's a fascinating concept with huge implications for the future of AI. It's a bit like moving from centralized power grids to a more distributed, renewable energy system. A paradigm shift, if you will.
A paradigm shift. Ooh, I like that. So in short, while we're still a long way from ditching those massive data centers, the possibility of a decentralized future for AI training is certainly something to keep an eye on.
Indeed. And that, my friends, is a wrap for today's episode of Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time for more exciting tech discussions. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into the fascinating world of tree width. It's a concept that sounds like something from a fantasy novel, but it's actually a cornerstone of graph theory, with implications across numerous fields. Get ready for a mind-bending journey.
Tree width? Sounds thrilling. So, what exactly is it?
Think of it like this. Imagine you have a graph, a network of interconnected points. Tree width measures how tree-like that graph is. A tree, obviously, has a tree width of 1, but more complex graphs. Well, their tree width reflects how easily they can be broken down into tree-like structures. The lower the tree width, the more tree-like it is, and the easier it is to solve certain problems on that graph.
I see. So it's a measure of complexity, essentially? But how is it actually defined?
That's where it gets really interesting. There are several equivalent definitions, which is kind of amazing. One involves tree decompositions. Imagine breaking down your graph into smaller chunks, represented by bags of vertices, connected in a tree-like structure. The size of the largest bag, -1, gives you the tree width. It's like finding the most efficient way to chop up a complex network into manageable pieces.
Okay, bags of vertices. I'm picturing little sacks full of dots. And the article mentions outer planar graphs. What's that?
Outer planar graphs are graphs that can be drawn on a disk with all vertices on the edge and no edges crossing. Think of it like drawing a map on a flat surface without any roads overlapping. They're a special case where the tree decomposition is particularly elegant, often based on a triangulation of the disk. Dividing the disk into triangles.
Right, triangulation. So if we have a tree decomposition, the width is the size of the largest bag minus 1. Why the minus 1?
That's a clever normalization trick. It makes sure that trees themselves have a tree width of 1, which makes intuitive sense. Otherwise, a simple tree would have a tree width equal to its maximum degree. It's a detail, but an important one for consistency.
The article also mentions other ways to define tree width, involving things like chordal supergraphs, havens, and brambles. Those sound like concepts straight out of a fantasy novel.
They are pretty abstract, but they all boil down to the same underlying measure of graph complexity. Chordal supergraphs, for example, are graphs that can be made into a tree-like structure by adding edges. Havens and brambles provide alternative ways to think about the tree-likeness of a graph, offering lower bounds on tree width. It's a rich and interconnected mathematical landscape.
So what's the big deal about tree width? Why should we care?
Oh, the applications are vast. Tree width is deeply connected to the computational complexity of many graph problems. Many problems that are nitrogen monophosphide complete in general become solvable in polynomial time if the tree width is bounded. This is a huge deal in algorithm design. Think graph coloring, for example.
Graph coloring? Like coloring a map so no adjacent regions have the same color?
Exactly. It's a classic nitrogen monophosphide complete problem, meaning it's notoriously difficult to solve for large graphs. But if your graph has bounded tree width, you can find an optimal coloring efficiently using a clever dynamic programming approach that works its way up and down the tree decomposition. It's brilliant.
That's amazing. And what other applications are there?
Loads. Sparse numerical linear algebra, Bayesian inference, game theory, low-dimensional topology, network science, even algebraic geometry. Wherever you have graphs representing relationships, tree width can help you understand the complexity of the problem and design more efficient algorithms. It's a truly powerful concept.
This is incredible. It's amazing how such a seemingly abstract concept has such wide-ranging practical applications. So what's the future of tree width research?
That's a great question. There's a lot of active research on extending the idea of tree width to other graph parameters, dealing with directed graphs, and finding ways to characterize graphs where efficient testing of logical properties is possible. New parameters like twin width and flip width are emerging, pushing the boundaries of what we can efficiently compute. It's a very active and exciting field.
This has been a truly enlightening discussion. Thank you for explaining tree width in such a clear and engaging way.
My pleasure. And thank you for listening to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the wonderful world of tree width. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of mathematics and computer science. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the surprisingly juicy history of the Mac OS X dock, a little piece of UI history that's been glued to our screens for, well, a quarter of a century. Amazing.
A quarter century? Wow. I always just assumed it was there. Like, it just appeared. So, what's the scoop on this legendary dock's origins?
Right. So, it all started with James Thomson, a guy who, get this, had already built his own dock-like application, Drag Thing, before even joining Apple. Talk about foreshadowing.
Whoa. A pre-Apple dock? That's like a pre-Beatles song. So how did Drag Thing lead him to Apple?
Exactly. It was his ticket. His golden ticket to Cupertino. He moved from Scotland to Ireland, joined a small team, and then, boom, gets pulled into a secret project codenamed Uberbar. I mean, how cool is that?
Uberbar? Sounds like a German beer festival, not a groundbreaking UI element. But seriously, what was the project about?
It was the dock, of course. Though, he didn't design it. That credit goes to Bas Ording, a UI designer personally recruited by Steve Jobs. Thompson's role was to take Ording's prototypes and make them actually work within the Finder team. A crucial role nonetheless.
So Thompson essentially brought the dock to life. He went from creating his own dock to making the iconic one we all know and love. That's a pretty awesome career arc, right?
Yeah, totally. It's a fantastic story of how sometimes prior experience can really make a difference. And it's a reminder that even the seemingly simplest elements of our technology have fascinating backstories.
It's also a testament to the power of a good doc, I suppose. I mean, it's been 25 years, and it's still essentially the same. That's design longevity right there.
Exactly. And the article mentions that this is just one of many 25-year-old stories waiting to be told about the development of Mac OS X. I'm excited to see what other secrets emerge. Imagine all the behind-the-scenes drama.
I'm with you. It's like uncovering lost chapters of a legendary tech saga. This whole thing makes me appreciate the doc so much more, you know? It's not just a place to put my apps, it's a tiny piece of history.
Precisely. And a reminder that even the seemingly mundane aspects of our digital lives have rich histories and fascinating people behind them. So thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News, and we hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into the surprisingly deep end of the Oregon Trail. You know, that classic game from our youth? Well, get ready, because we're talking about a 14,000-year playthrough.
A 14,000-year playthrough? Are you serious? I thought my 3-hour session was impressive. What happened?
Oh, it's a wild ride. It all started with a Twitch streamer, Albrat, discovering a bug. See, you can wait at a river, and the game doesn't update your health. Immortality, essentially. So, he decided to wait for 10,000 years.
10,000 years? That's, dedicated. So, what was the goal? To see if they could reach Oregon after all that time?
Exactly. But the first attempt ended in disaster. Disease got them. So, our intrepid hero reached out for help. Enter reverse engineering.
Reverse engineering the Oregon Trail? That sounds intense. What kind of tech did they use?
MAME. An emulator. Think of it as a superpowered time machine for old games. They used it to debug the Apple II version, which, by the way, is written in AppleSoft BASIC. AppleSoft BASIC, yeah.
AppleSoft Basic? That's ancient. So how did they even begin to unravel this mystery? Did they just start poking around in the code?
Well, it wasn't quite that simple. They started by looking for where the game displays the poor health status. They found the memory address, set a watch point, and boom, they were in the code. But then things got complicated. It turned out the health calculations were buried deep within the AppleSoft BASIC interpreter.
Oh boy. Sounds like a nightmare. So how did they solve it? Did they learn AppleSoft BASIC overnight?
Not quite. They cleverly monitored memory, looking for variables that changed with the party's health. They found one, H, and realized they could manipulate it to reset the health. But even then, it wasn't a complete victory. The second attempt only got them to 16,120 AD.
Wow, that's disheartening. So, what was the final breakthrough? Did they finally conquer AppleSoft BASIC?
They actually wrote a decompiler for the AppleSoft BASIC bytecode. It turned out to be surprisingly straightforward, and they found the health calculation formula. The problem? A massive food starvation factor. Even after 14,000 years, it was still sky high.
So they fixed the food starvation factor? They finally reached Oregon?
Almost. They fixed the food starvation issue. But then, a new problem emerged. An error at the very end of the game related to the date. The game couldn't handle a year that far in the future. The original ending screen only allowed for a 2-digit year.
Oh no, that's a cruel twist of fate. So they couldn't complete it?
Not quite. They modified the game's code to handle a larger year value. And finally, after all that time and effort, they made it to Oregon in 16,120 AD.
Incredible! What a journey! That's a testament to perseverance and a deep understanding of reverse engineering. This whole story is amazing.
It truly is. And it shows that even seemingly simple games can hide incredible depths of complexity. It's a great example of how a little curiosity and a lot of technical skill can lead to amazing discoveries. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day and happy trails.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving headfirst into some seriously alarming statistics. U.S. employee engagement is at a 10-year low. Yikes!
10 years? That's a significant drop. What's the core issue here?
Precisely. Gallup's latest report shows only 31% of U.S. employees are engaged, mirroring the dismal numbers from 2014. That's a whole lot of unhappy workers.
So what's causing this mass exodus of enthusiasm?
Well, it's a multifaceted problem. The report points to a few key culprits. Lack of clarity and expectations. Only 46% know what's expected of them. A decline in feeling cared for, and a lack of opportunities for development. It's like they're adrift at sea, without a map, a life raft, or a destination.
Wow, that's bleak. So it's not just about the money, right? It's about feeling valued and having a clear path forward?
Exactly. And it's particularly bad for younger workers, especially General Z. They're reporting even lower engagement across the board, especially regarding clarity, recognition, and development opportunities. It's a real wake-up call for companies.
I see. So what about the economic context? Is the tough economy to blame?
That's a great question, and it's a complex one. The report notes that while the economy is challenging, with job vacancies outpacing hiring, the decline in engagement isn't solely an economic issue. The report suggests that even with increased overall labor productivity, the quality of work, which is harder to measure, is suffering.
So even though productivity numbers might look good, the underlying quality and employee satisfaction are tanking?
Precisely. Gallup argues that employee engagement is a key predictor of things like work quality, safety, and profitability. It's a long-term investment, not just a short-term cost-cutting measure.
So what's the solution? Is there a silver bullet?
There's no single magic bullet, but the report highlights some crucial strategies. Leaders need to define their workplace culture, clarify organizational purpose, and, crucially, invest in upskilling their managers. Managers are key to improving engagement.
I agree. It all comes down to good management, doesn't it? Investing in managers is an investment in the entire company's success.
Absolutely. And it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about selecting managers who are naturally engaging and inspiring, and providing them with the tools and training they need to succeed. This isn't just about numbers. It's about people.
So it's about creating a workplace where people feel valued, understood, and empowered to do their best work. This is a call to action for businesses everywhere.
Exactly. And the good news is, many organizations are already achieving much higher engagement levels than the national average. It's possible to turn things around. We just need to learn from their success and prioritize employee well-being. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this insightful. Have a great day. And remember to stay engaged.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the surprisingly thrilling world of celestial navigation in the modern Navy. It's less about stargazing and more about, surviving a GPS blackout.
A GPS blackout? Sounds intense. So, what's the story here? I mean, aren't we all glued to our GPS devices these days? Even my cat has a GPS tracker. Just kidding. Mostly.
Exactly. The USS Essex, a massive amphibious assault ship, completely disabled all its electronic navigation systems. Voluntarily, for a 5-day, 1,800 nautical mile voyage. Think of it as a really long-distance, high-stakes navigation test.
Wow. So they went back to the old-school methods? Like sextants and paper charts? Sounds like something out of a historical novel.
Precisely. They used sextants, paper charts, the whole shebang. It wasn't just a test of equipment. It was a test of the crew's skills, their ability to adapt, and their patience, because celestial navigation is not a quick process.
I can imagine. So, what were the results? Did they get completely lost? I'm picturing a ship adrift, surrounded by sharks.
Not quite. They actually did remarkably well. They started off a bit off course, about 5 nautical miles on the first day, but quickly corrected their trajectory. By the end, they were consistently within 1 nautical mile of their planned route. Considering they were relying on celestial fixes, which can be affected by weather and other factors, that's pretty impressive.
Incredible. But why would the Navy do something so seemingly archaic? I mean, we're talking about a modern warship, not a 19th century sailing vessel.
That's the crux of it, you know? The Navy is preparing for a future where electronic warfare and cyber attacks could easily disrupt GPS. They need sailors who can navigate without relying solely on technology. It's about redundancy and resilience. Think of it as a really, really expensive, really long insurance policy.
I see. So it's not just about nostalgia. It's about preparing for potential wartime scenarios where GPS might be jammed or unavailable. That makes perfect sense.
Exactly. And the article emphasizes that while the training exists, it's not regularly practiced. They found that many navigators prioritize administrative tasks over daily celestial navigation practice, even though it's required. A bit of a cultural shift is needed, it seems.
So what are the key takeaways? What should we, the listeners, remember from this fascinating tale of nautical ingenuity?
Well, first, even in the age of GPS, celestial navigation is still a vital skill. Second, consistent practice is key to mastering any skill, especially one as complex as celestial navigation. And finally, the Navy is taking seriously the potential vulnerabilities of relying solely on electronic systems. It's a reminder that even in the 21st century, basic skills can be crucial for survival.
Absolutely. It's a great story about adaptability, resilience, and the enduring importance of fundamental skills. It's a reminder that technology is a tool, but mastery of the fundamentals is what truly matters. And it makes for a great podcast episode.
Indeed. And a big thank you to our listeners for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of celestial navigation in the modern Navy. Until next time, fair winds and following seas.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your personal generative AI podcast. Buckle up, folks, because we're diving headfirst into a truly wild tale of a luxury train, a monstrous blizzard, and a whole lot of unexpected heroism. We're talking about the time the city of San Francisco got completely snowed in near Donner Pass.
Whoa, Donner Pass? That's ominous. I've heard stories. What happened?
Oh, it was a doozy. January 1952. This fancy-pants streamliner, the city of San Francisco, is chugging along, boasting about its speedy overland route. You know, the route the 49ers took, only way more comfortable. Until it wasn't. A blizzard, 90-mile-per-hour winds, 25-foot snowdrifts, the whole shebang. The train, with 226 passengers, gets completely stuck.
Completely stuck? Like totally immobile?
Totally immobile. 6,750 horsepower, and it couldn't budge. 3 locomotives. Nothing. They were trapped.
So what'd they do? Panic? Mutiny? A Wild West showdown in the dining car?
Well, initially, it was surprisingly calm. Bridge games, sing-alongs, they even sang, "I've been working on the railroad," which, given the circumstances, is darkly ironic. But then, the lights went out, the heat died, and things got really, really cold. 22 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh man, that's brutal. What did they do to survive?
Improvise. Adapt. Overcome. They used curtains for blankets, broke up chairs for firewood. And, let's just say the more dedicated staff members got creative with the latrine situation. One passenger even remembered the Donner Party, which, didn't exactly boost morale.
Yikes, that's a lot. And then there was the carbon monoxide poisoning?
Yeah, portable propane heaters. A classic recipe for disaster. A doctor on board, Dr. Roll, had to diagnose and treat dozens of people, even using gin to sterilize his syringe. Talk about resourcefulness.
Incredible. So how did they get rescued? Did they just wait it out?
Oh no, the rescue was an epic saga in itself. Multiple attempts failed, including 4 rotary snowplows. Then, a group of skiers from a nearby hotel, along with a dog sled team led by a legendary Samoyed named Rex, the Blizzard King himself, finally broke through.
A dog sled team? Whew, that's amazing.
It really was. They brought food and supplies, and eventually, after 3 long days, a path was cleared. But 2 rescuers died in the process, a sobering reminder of the risks involved.
That's heartbreaking. But what a story. A testament to human resilience and the unexpected heroism of ordinary people.
Absolutely. The passengers, after 3 days of freezing temperatures, carbon monoxide poisoning, and dwindling supplies, were finally rescued. They were exhausted, but alive. And they had quite the story to tell. A truly unforgettable chapter in American railroad history.
Unforgettable indeed. Thanks for sharing this incredible story.
You're welcome. And that's all the time we have for today's episode of Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the daily roundup of Tech Bytes and News. See you again tomorrow. Goodbye.